Yo, what's going on, y'all? It's Cone back here again today with another video, and today we're talking about my favorite team, once again, the Oklahoma City Thunder. In my opinion, I'm the biggest Thunder fan in the world, and last night against the Clippers was the Thunder's biggest game since 2020 Game 7 against the Houston Rockets, where Dort had a 30-piece, but unfortunately we ended up losing. Last night was the biggest game that we've had since then because it was going up against the Los Angeles Clippers, who are a bit ahead of us in the standings at the moment. It was a chance for the Thunder to finally reach 500 after several opportunities over the course of this recent stretch of the season. It was on the road. It was a big moment. And the Thunder got it done. They won 101-100. It came all the way down to the wire, and we'll talk a lot about that game in this video. But now the Thunder moved to 500 on the season, sitting at 36-36, 10 games to play. They're the 7th seed, tied with the Dallas Mavericks at the moment, who have Luka Doncic traded for Kyrie Irving. They're also half a game back of the defending champion Golden State Warriors. And the Warriors have a pretty tough schedule coming up because they cannot win on the road, it seems, unless it's going up against like the Houston Rockets. They play 4 road games in their last 9, so that's a really tough stretch for them. The Thunder play the Clippers coming up, who are only 1.5 games ahead of OKC. If the Thunder keep playing the way that they are, and they've been one of the best teams in the NBA since the All-Star break and really since the calendar turned to 2023, there's a real shot the Thunder could not just be in the play-in tournament and have an opportunity to make the playoffs. This Thunder team could make the playoffs altogether. It's been one of the most fun seasons I've ever had as a Thunder fan. There are so many reasons why this team is so good, and the Clippers game in particular really encapsulated a lot of the reasons why we've shocked the world this season. So I figured now would be a good time to go ahead and just talk about that game. This isn't going to be one of my more structured videos. I kind of just wanted to ramble about the Thunder a little bit, but we're going to go ahead and talk about what's been so great over the course of this season through the context of what was one of the biggest games that the Thunder have played in a little bit. As usual, the Thunder were led to victory by Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who not just became an all-star this season, but is also in conversations for all-NBA first team. And in my opinion, if we end up making the playoffs, he should finish top 10, top 7 even maybe, for MVP voting. There was even some guys saying on Twitter that they might have Shai at their 5th spot if he ends up making it to, say, like the 6th seed the Thunder do. He's been amazing. Last night he had 31 points, 7 rebounds, and 4 assists. He started off kind of shaky. The Clippers were throwing a lot of different defensive looks at him. They started off with the zone that really had the Thunder flustered. He had a couple of early turnovers. He couldn't seem to get his shot falling. He only had 11 points at halftime, which is unusual for Shai because he averages over 30 a game. But he figured it out. Eventually, he started to kind of get into his rhythm. He got to the line a couple of times. He was knocking down middies, having some of the most absurd finishes you will ever see, which is typical Shai stuff. That was mainly towards the middle end of the 3rd quarter, and then in the 4th quarter as well, when we needed him most down the stretch. He was aggressive. He got to the basket. He finished. He knocked down some shots, and he led us to victory, as he's been doing all season. You can go ahead and look back at my old videos. I've been saying for years that Shai can be a franchise player. He can be the best player on a title contender. He could be a future MVP in this league, and a lot of people said I was wrong, but he's doing it not just like in the future. It's not like something that's now a possibility. This season, he is an MVP candidate. Now, he's not going to win it. He's not going to finish in the top 3, but he's likely going to finish in the top 10 of MVP voting, be potentially all-NBA first team, probably at the worst all-NBA second team, and he's still super young. This is only the 2nd year of his big contract. He's just only going to get better as he's gotten exponentially better every single offseason. Shai is going to reach unimaginable heights, and the fact that he's doing this right now on the youngest team in the NBA right now, the 2nd youngest team in NBA history, it's incredible. He's the leader for this team. He's the best player, and he's going to lead this squad to a championship someday and might lead them to a playoff run right now. Meanwhile, there's J-Dub, aka Jalen Williams, who continues to thrust himself into the Rookie of the Year conversation. I know Paolo's probably going to win. It's going to be really difficult for J-Dub to make that push and win it, but he is a true contender. I've seen so many people say that this is like a stat nerd thing, or that people just need to watch Paolo play. They don't pay attention to the magic. No, J-Dub is making such a big impact, and I will say again, I think Paolo still is the favorite. But what J-Dub has done on a consistent basis in this game, he had 20 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists. He was exploding to the rim. He was efficient. He knocked down big threes. He got the Kawhi assignment a couple of times, as well as Paul George, and played great defense on both of those guys. Real quick, I do want to note Paul George got hurt in this one. Really hope that he's okay and that it's not any long-term thing. We don't have any information right now as I'm recording this video, so I can't provide any updates, but hopefully everything is good with PG. Prayers out to him. but he was guarding those two guys, two of the best players in the league right now, on multiple possessions, and that's what he's been given the opportunity to do. Him and Lou Dort playing as wing defenders out there. He's leading the NBA in steals since January 1st. And then on the other end, Kawhi was guarding him some possessions. They were putting Kawhi Leonard specifically on J-Dub because he was torching basically anybody and everybody in front of him. They really just had no answer for him basically the entire night, as almost nobody in the league has since the turn of the calendar year. His exponential improvement has been amazing to watch. I think he has all-star potential. He can be one of the best two-way guys in the league. I mean, he's been playing the 4 for us most of the season, and he probably more projects as a 2 or a 3 as a 6'6" guy, but having this incredibly long wingspan, the instincts to get steals, the explosiveness that many people didn't think that he had, the consistency, the efficiency, shooting. He's just such a steadying force for this team, and one of the most unsung and biggest reasons why we are where we are. Then there's Josh Giddey, who continues to have quietly an amazing sophomore season. He had 13 points, 6 rebounds, and 6 assists. There was one point where he was kind of going bucket for bucket with Paul George. He had some really tough finishes, a couple of push shots, some floaters over Zubats. He was doing everything very, very well. He also played some really good defense at the beginning of the game in particular. When the Thunder were down 18-4 after a quick Clippers outburst, we called a timeout. The team came back in, and Giddey in particular was one of the guys I most noticed. His energy shifted. He was locked in on defense. He had some amazing possessions that helped the Thunder get back in the game early, that if we didn't have those possessions, those stops, things might have gotten absolutely out of hand. So shout out to Giddey. He continues to go as an unsung hero of this team, but he had a really solid performance and continues to have such a great sophomore year. Then, of course, we have to talk about Lou Dort, the torture chamber. At the end of the game, the Thunder are up 1 with about 20 seconds to go, I believe. Kawhi Leonard has the ball. They try to switch Dort off of him multiple times. They run a couple of screens. Russ tries to kind of push him. Dort fights through everything, makes Kawhi stumble with the ball a couple of times. He makes him try and take a step back, but he can't get it off because Dort's hand is in his face. Kawhi Leonard didn't even get a shot off. The buzzer goes off, and the Clippers don't even get a shot attempt up because Kawhi Leonard is being clamped by Lou Dort. His defense is such a game changer, and his offense, it's inconsistent. That's what it is. But defensively, in these big-time moments, you need a player that can come in the way that Lou can and lock up an opposing team's best player. And it's not just some random best player on an opposing team. This is Kawhi Leonard, one of the best players in the league, who's been a monster all season, one of the most efficient scorers, a dominant mid-range guy, and he's knocked down so many clutch shots over the course of his career. It felt terrifying, the fact that he had the ball in his hands at the end of this game, but it didn't matter because Lou absolutely clamped him up. He was amazing in this possession. A lot of people get frustrated with the offense, the inconsistency on that end, but defensively, Lou is always going to bring it when it matters most, and that is so important for this team. Of course, we have to shout some of the other guys as well. Aaron Wiggins played a really solid defense the entire game. Didn't score much, but he got some really clutch rebounds. The Clippers at the beginning of the game were just killing us on the offensive glass. We could not secure the end of those possessions, and Aaron Wiggins was one of the main hustle guys that secured some of those boards, tipped them away, had great box outs, just amazing minutes from him. He even guarded Mason Plumlee for a little bit and did a great job in that regard. Isaiah Joe hit some big shots, as he has done all season. And also, like a Wiggs, had so many great hustle plays. He was knocking the ball away. He had one where he knocked the ball away from Kawhi Leonard, who was trying to secure a rebound. He ended up getting a box out. He would grab an offensive board here and there. Just so many absolutely critical plays. He had a tip-in shot after Shai missed. Without Isaiah Joe, we don't win this game, and we don't win so many of these games without Isaiah Joe, who once again we got for free in free agency because the Sixers waived him and the Thunder took a chance on him. They brought him in. He's been a lights-out shooter, but he's been so much more than that. He's shown a knack for creating his own shot in the mid-range, going ahead and attacking the basket as well. He's throwing down some crazy dunks too, hustle plays. Isaiah Joe just does a little bit of everything. He's such an important player for this team as well. Also have to give a shout to a couple of bigs, including Olivier Sarr, who we had last season, but we ended up waiving him. The Blazers brought him in. The Blazers ended up waiving him, and now we brought him back. He had so many great minutes. He had a big block. He had a couple of tough shots as well. Played some good defense. He hasn't played very much since we brought him in, I think probably like a month ago at this point, a little over a month ago. But in this game, when we needed him really badly to match up against the size of the Clippers, he stepped up in such a big way. Same with J. Will, who's been great all season. He got into some foul trouble, so he didn't play nearly as much. but he also knocked down a couple of threes as the Thunder were jockeying with the Clippers for momentum early on, and those were huge, something that he's really done all season, as well as just take a billion charges. Basically, everybody on this roster has made a huge contribution at one point or another over the course of this season. It's so fun to watch. You don't typically see young teams like this rise in such a way where they're a hard-nosed defensive team. They could go ahead and lock you up on a possession. They have this identity. Right now, if they make the playoffs, they will be the youngest team ever to do so. You don't see teams like this. And I think a big piece of this is the coaching of Mark Daigneault, who was brought in after we got rid of Billy Donovan to spearhead this rebuild. He's been phenomenal. I would say he's a top 10 coach in the NBA this season. Even has an argument for top 5 in general if he is a good playoffs coach, which we don't know yet. But there's a real chance he could prove himself there as early as this season with the way that this team is playing. They're the second youngest team in NBA history, the youngest team in the NBA right now, yet they're the 7th seed, they're 500 on the year, and they're doing all of this without their number 2 overall pick in Chet Holmgren, who is an elite rim protector, which the Thunder don't have. They really don't have a 7-footer on this roster at the moment. Chet immediately gives them someone of that height, a shot blocker, a great defender, in my opinion, has Defensive Player of the Year level upside. He can also stretch the floor, gives Shai, Giddey, and the others a lob threat. He just fits this team literally perfectly. He is the ideal center for this squad, and we don't even have him. And we're doing what we're doing so far this season. It is just hard to fathom. And like I keep saying, this Clippers game was such a big moment. They were down 18-4 in the first quarter. Things seem to be maybe getting out of hand. They were in a hostile environment playing in Los Angeles on the verge of making it to 500, which has been a death sentence for the Thunder the entire year, going up against future Hall of Famers in Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, and a team as a whole that, whether or not they are a contender, they have championship aspirations. But it didn't matter. They fought back. They battled all throughout the night and ended up coming out with the win in, like I keep saying, the biggest game that the Thunder have had in quite some time. And part of it being poetic, Shai and Jada were the main 2 guys who kind of led us in this game, of course, as well as Lou Dort, Josh Giddey, and everybody else that I mentioned. But Shai and Jalen Williams are probably our top 2 guys in this game, and Shai was the centerpiece of the trade that sent Paul George over to the Clippers that began this Thunder rebuild. Jada was taken with the Clippers pick from last year where they ended up missing the playoffs, so he's also technically a piece of that trade. And they were the 2 guys that ended up taking down the Clippers tonight for the most part. It's just amazing to see what this rebuild has turned into, the way that Sam Presti has beautifully navigated this whole thing, the way that the team has stepped up, they play for each other, the coaching, everything is coming together in such a big way. And it feels eerily reminiscent of those early KD, Russ, Harden teams. And I'm not saying that the guys on this team are going to be like Shai's going to be KD and that J-Dub's going to be Russ and, going down the line. But it's similar in terms of, I think that this is a young team that is on the cusp of doing something special within the next few years, and people are starting to take notice. I mean, there were publications that were saying that the Thunder were going to win 18 games this season, even before Chet got hurt. When Chet got hurt, I saw some people saying 15 games, 13 games, they're going to go all in for Victor Wembanyama. This team isn't that good. I said on Twitter, Shai can be an all-star this year. Shai's going to be an all-NBA player. People called me crazy. I made a video before the year saying that the Oklahoma City Thunder are going to be better than you think, and I will say they were even better than I thought, but so many of y'all on that video said, yeah, better than I think, like they'll get 20 wins instead of 19 like I think. People were clowning me for that video. People were saying that I was insane for saying that Shai was going to be an all-NBA player, but look where we are now. Look what this team has done. This is a special group of guys. I'm going to keep saying it. The second youngest team in the history of the league shouldn't be this good. The young core is just loaded with talent, between Shai being a future MVP in my opinion, J-Dub having all-star potential, same with Chet, same with Giddey. So many guys on this team could be high-level role players. Isaiah Joe is a knockdown shooter. Lou Dort could be an all-defensive guy for years. It's just hard to believe that there's so much young talent that we accrued in just a couple of seasons. There are many people who, for some reason, think that this Thunder rebuild has taken a while. The Thunder, relatively to most rebuilds, have done it in basically no time whatsoever. Like I said, we were in the playoffs in a Game 7 in 2020, so it took 2021, 2022. Here we are, the 3rd year of this rebuild. We're one of the better teams in the Western Conference in the second half of the season. We've got one of the best ratings in the Western Conference in the entirety of the year. And once again, this is without Chet Holmgren, the 2nd overall pick in this past year's draft. And somehow I haven't even mentioned yet that the Thunder still have a plethora of first-round picks to go ahead and make moves, move up in drafts if we want to go ahead and secure another young piece to this team. If a superstar becomes available and we say, hey, we want to add him to this core to really push us over the top, we've got the assets to do so in draft capital. the team is just so perfectly set up. There is so many different ways that the Thunder can go from here, whether they make the playoffs this year, whether they don't. The Thunder are set up not just perfectly now, but for the future. The Thunder are making their arrival. I think it's very similar to a couple of years ago when the Grizzlies made the play-in tournament. They ended up pushing the Jazz to 5 games, but it was a hard-fought 5 games, and people were like, that team is up next. I think the Thunder are being well noticed around the league as being one of those teams that is up next. I think there's a real shot, like I said earlier, that we not just make the play-in, but the playoffs themselves. I believe in this team. This core is special. It's the best young core in the NBA. I've been talking for a while, so I promise I'll wrap it up soon. But once again, shout out to this Thunder team. Everybody on it is contributing in such a big way. It's been such a joy to watch. One of my favorite Thunder seasons of all time. May even go down as my favorite by the time everything is all said and done, depending on how things wrap up. And to wrap the video, I want to share a Sam Presti quote with y'all that he said, I think it was about a year ago, when he was asked about what's the timeline for the team, when are you going to try to get back to competing, and he basically said, we're just going to kind of go with the flow, see what happens, we can't predict the future, but that when we return to the playoffs, we don't want it to be just a playoff appearance, we want it to be an arrival, and it feels like this season the Thunder have arrived. With all that being said, I appreciate y'all watching. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of these videos. Go ahead and comment down below. Where do you think the Thunder finish in the standings of this season? And where do you think they go from here next season? Where do you project them being? How good do you think Chet's going to be? Do you think, like me, that Shai will be a future MVP? What are your projections for guys like Jada, Giddey, amongst many others? But yeah, once again, I appreciate y'all watching. Thunder up. I'll see y'all later. Real one safe back.